Hello and welcome back to Hudson Auto Films, and you guessed it, today we are back working on the Nova. Today is probably one of the biggest episodes in this series so far. We're going to get our turbocharged Alpha racing engine fitted to the gearbox and the chassis, and then get this thing running. Or at least try to. The trouble is, as a lot of you will know, this is a combination of multiple engines, and timing it is going to be a nightmare. Making sure it doesn't blow up and flames don't come out all of the wrong places, well, it's going to be a challenge. But regardless, it is going to be very exciting. So, let's do this. So this is our turbo race engine for the Nova. Given right now it is missing a few parts. But if we're ever going to see this thing running, the first thing we need to address is the oil delivery system. As you may recall, we used a standard backplate on our turbo engine, which meant the oil filter was clashing with the turbo manifold. And we devised the rather polarizing solution of blocking the standard oil port with JB Weld and a cut-up oil filter, to then route the oil to an external filter and pump it back in. And well, we're still doing exactly that, but rather than the sort of hacking of JB Weld and blocking it off, we are just going to use the racing backplate, which was already designed for this purpose. We were avoiding it because we didn't want to take the engine apart again, but we've decided to bite the bullet. So the first job is to take the sump off, which will then allow us to take the backplate off, put the racing backplate on, and then we can devise our external oil filter system. So let's strip this engine again. And with the backplate transplant complete, we could get the engine back on the stand and start addressing another key issue: timing. Now, timing this engine is going to be no easy task, and that is for a few reasons. First of all, this is a few versions of an Alpha engine put together, so it's not quite as straightforward as reading the manual and just following the instructions. We've got a variety of parts which weren't necessarily destined to be together. Especially when you add into the mix, one of those variants is a turbo race engine, which basically every single part of it is custom, and there is no instruction book for it. And finally, often you've got backplates with viewing windows and markers to line up, but ours has none of that. Even the backplates we have and front covers don't seem to have the viewing windows and markers that we need, so we're having to do everything completely manually. So as you can see, we took the intakes off, started turning the engine and basically assessing when the valves were opening, closing, all that sort of thing, and just trying to get a gauge on what on earth was happening. Meanwhile, trying to align it with the information we could find online, of which almost everything was contradicting the next article. So this was tricky.
We weren't on compression stroke, were we? We were on valve opening stroke.
Yeah.
So we just need to go back to TDC.
After lots of assessment of what our engine was doing internally, we ended up timing the engine based on a picture from the workshop manual, which showed the cam markings being one tooth off from vertical. We were relatively happy, so it was now time to move on to the distributor, and even this was an interesting task. The whole thing had been hacked up so the cap could sit in a variety of different positions.
That's there. How come it fits there, but that's the...
But after a little bit of fiddling, we were just about happy that we were sparking in the right place at the right time.
Degrees of crank is 180 degrees of crank, so that's right.
Yeah.
So TDC, number one, compression stroke, vertically up.
Yeah.
Let's move this one.
Yeah. But ultimately, we were only going to be able to figure out whether our method was correct when we got the engine properly turning over. We were pretty sure we weren't going to hit anything catastrophic like contact, but whether it would fire at the right time is, yeah, we'll see. Okay, so we were roughly timed, hopefully. The engine had a new backplate on, so the last thing before we can try and get this thing on and started is the oil system. Now this should be pretty simple. The new backplate allows us to pump oil directly out to the external filter, and then there is a hole in the top of the block that allows us to pump filtered oil back in. This is the exact setup that was used on the racing car, so hopefully this should be fairly straightforward and pretty effective. Now look at that race car. Of course, lots of things like the actual positioning will be determined with how the body sits on and everything communicates where we mount it, all that sort of thing, but for now it is in place and it will work. Also, disclaimer, of course, a new filter was put in. Now we had an oil system and our engine was just about ready to go. So next up we need to begin the process of mounting the engine to the Beetle gearbox. So step one is to get our adapter plate, which basically allows you to connect the Alpha to the VW. But as you can see, the adapter plate has studs, and well, so does the back of the engine. So we need to remove the studs from the back of the engine so we can get the plate to sit on as it should and be bolted through. But in typical fashion, this was a lot easier said than done. The studs were completely jammed in there, so we had to use a range of methods like double nutting and even welding to get them out. But in the end, we got there. So, time for the adapter plate. And of course, yet again in typical fashion, even though most of the bolts went in, we needed a very low profile head. So this required us to make a couple of custom bolts which would allow them to sit inside the adapter plate, which then means the adapter plate can sit flush against the gearbox. Ah, cars.
And this can go over there like that. We'll have to drill it now. We'll have to drill it, tack weld it, pull it out, chop it off properly, weld it properly, put it back.
Yeah.
Oh, you mother hubbard.
Rubber glove. Hot.
Oh.
Can I do the honours on this one?
Yeah.
Can I do the honours on this one?
What others do you want to do?
Tightening it in.
You'll stick it down your bell end.
Oh yes, please.
Oh, it's going to hurt. It's hot. Yeah, you can give it a go. Why not? It's a bit hot. Stick that on it.
And with the night rapidly drawing in and a few custom bolts later, the adapter plate was on. So the final step of the day before we can get this engine on is clutch, flywheel, all of that fun. So you'll quickly see that the condition of these parts is not new and not ideal. And indeed, all of this will be replaced, but the goal of today is to get the engine on and get it turning over on the starter motor to see if we can get it to fire, to see if our engine is going to work at all. The nature of this build and the fact we're just combining so many different parts means the engine will have to come on and off probably a couple more times, especially once the body is on and we're trying to figure out clearances for exhaust setups, mounting things, all of that fun. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity to replace the clutch yet again. Not to mention I've been recommended a lot of different setups and I'm just not quite sure which one to go for yet.
Yeah, there she is.
Yeah.
Stay there, stay there. Don't fall off now.
Let's put it back in.
Beauty.
Nice.
Jobbed.
So there we have it. The clutch assembly is now on. And it was getting pretty late, but there was one final job we were desperate to do before we went home for the day. After many weeks, it was time to make the engine one with the rolling chassis. This is a huge moment for the build. A couple months ago, this Nova was basically more rust than car, the engine was destroyed, and now we've got a strong chassis with air suspension and a turbo race engine ready to go on. Wow, a lot has happened in the last few weeks. So, here we go.
Yes, catching a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow, what a day. A great moment to think about how far this has all come. And later that evening, fireworks were flying. It may have been for bonfire night, but it seemed symbolic. After all that hard work, the Nova was now one again. For now. I just want to take one moment out to talk about this rather exquisite book that has been sent to me by my friends at Hungry Minds. This is their new cover, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization. Now, this book is really up my street. It's sort of a practical survival guide meets a deep dive into history and science. It offers a step-by-step guide on how we built and how to rebuild essential areas of human existence, everything from food production to machines, including cars, tanks, just about anything you can imagine, it's in this book. And if you're a history buff, it explores ancient civilizations, how they came to be, how they evolved, and with the implementation of science, how they developed into the people we are now. And if you're more of a practical sort of person, well, this is up your street as well. It teaches essential survival skills from farming, toolmaking, water purification, and even energy creation. And if you're like me, rather ambitious and interested, but maybe not technically trained, well, it's still written in simple language with engaging pictures, making it easy to follow for all readers. As you probably guess, one of my favourite sections is on the combustion engine, especially fitting within this week's episode. It details all of the key components and also, interestingly, how we transition from steam power to combustion. And an area that all of you undoubtedly have picked up on by now is the incredible illustrations on every single page, making the book not only a practical guide, but also a remarkable work of art in itself. An absolutely fantastic solo read and conversation piece. I've left a link down in the description. It is a great gift for yourself, your friends, your family, people of all ages. I'm very pro getting people away from screens, even though that seems a bit ironic, but this is a great way of doing so. Proper information, good people, check them out. It was a new day and a lot more work was to be done. But don't worry, first of all, time to give you a better look, because I know I sort of skipped over that bit. Introducing our turbocharged air ride rolling chassis. Okay, enough soaking in the moment. The goal of the day is to try and get some life out of this engine, even just a little bit. But before we can even conceive that, it's time to get the starter motor on and try and build up some oil pressure. Fingers crossed. So this oil is not long for this world. This is just to get us going, to build oil pressure and see if we can get those first fires out. And then it will be changed immediately. Now, the only downside to the racing backplate is the oil fill location. It is about the size of a pencil, which is not ideal. Now, in the future, it might be an idea to get some sort of automatic pump, which would make this whole process a lot easier. But we had to devise a sort of questionable method, as always. And now the block was full of oil, it was time to prime the filter. So we had oil in the engine and the filter was primed, so we were just about ready to put some power to this engine. Now, arguably one of the biggest moments in the build so far.
The bottom one? Yeah. Right, it spins.
The first bit of movement. I have to say I was so nervous at this point. Regardless of what you think of this build, the amount of hours I've gone into it, this was a huge moment. Time for a bit more welly.
It's alright. Let's keep going.
Longer?
Yeah, a little bit.
Nothing catastrophic yet. Time to check for some oil pressure. There. So let's see if it's flowing. Let's just put that somewhere. Ready? Yeah, see if we pump. It's pumping. Yeah, good. We had some oil.
Are we just filling up the filter right now?
Yeah, it's slowly filling it up. It's not.
Oil pressure was building nicely, and then suddenly, our engine got a little bit overexcited.
Whoa! What is that?
Well, at least we can say we've got oil pressure.
That's just a bit of gasket material.
Really?
Yeah. What's supposed to go in there?
Jesus.
So, what on earth just happened? This is the front plate off the race engine, and this tapped hole was full of some sort of gasket material. It had been painted over, and then I had painted over it yet again, so we had no idea it existed. We checked the other two front plates we had off our 1.5 and 1.7 standard factory engines, and neither of them had anything there. It was completely solid. So again, this was another unique feature of the race engine. But why? After scratching our heads for a moment, we realised exactly what it was. It was actually the oil feed for the turbo. So many years ago, someone would have drilled and tapped the block in order to feed oil to the turbo, but for whatever reason they filled it up with silicon, perhaps just when the engine was left to sit, just so stuff didn't get inside, but it was also painted over when it was blue, so yeah, a little bit curious. But it doesn't matter, we caught it, and now we know exactly where we are going to feed our turbo oil from, so it is a bit of a result as well. But obviously right now all we need to do is get this thing running. The turbo isn't going on it quite yet, so we just need to find a way to block it. And then we found the port that actually was designed for it. There's a whole box of bits and bobs for this engine, hundreds of nuts and bolts and all sorts, so this would have allowed you to attach a feed line going up to the turbo. But for now this will allow us to cap it off and just build pressure and not shoot oil all over the floor.
Race car.
There's a spider on the engine.
Ah.
Is it coming out? Is it? Tight.
Anyway, with that problem sorted, time to crank yet again.
Ready?
Always ready.
Ready?
Get it down there.
So we are satisfied we had oil pressure in all the right places and that there was no leaking. So the next thing to do was hook up the ignition system, add some spark, and see if this engine goes bang. Of course, in the positive way, not in the catastrophic way. Yes, we may be able to get spark, but is anything going to land in the right place? And with our intakes now rather sparingly held in place with a very small amount of rubber, it was time to add some fuel, or brake cleaner, and see what happens. Now this really is the big moment.
Just check we've got a spark first of all.
Yeah.
There's a spark tester.
Just over there.
No spark.
No spark.
I'll put it in here and just see if it points up.
So the spark tester showed we weren't getting any spark at all. So time to make some slight alterations.
Down a bit. Do we need to nip it down a bit?
No, I just want to check the points to it.
And a few checks and adjustments later, we are ready to go again. And what happened next we were not expecting, otherwise we may have positioned our heads in slightly different places.
Jesus. Fire.
I think my hair just blew off.
Want a bit of something to block that off?
No, it's fine. It's doing nicely. There we go.
Me.
That was a bit of backfire.
That was that was mad.
That was a bit of backfire. So I would say that was the ignition was slightly too early because the inlet valve was still open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something happened which at this stage
We're getting
did feel
spark.
like a win. Round 2.
Jesus, you ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Not too much, Steve.
Hey?
Not too much.
That's enough. And he's got a bit of flavour.
So we had a campfire, but we didn't have a running engine. That was something. And it looks like there's some sequence coming out of the exhaust. And then...
Woohoo! That's a fire.
That was positive.
That was firing.
Yeah.
Just give it a little...
Now that was actually firing. Just.
Yep. Just gonna go. Well, that was a run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It got a couple of RPM out of that.
I've got the runs.
So we had some life, but we decided it was time to put the carb on because maybe a slightly more reliable fuel delivery system might help.
Yeah.
Now this carb is a bit of an unknown quantity. It was drilled for methanol and it's probably really bunged up in there, but let's just give it a go. Just to clarify, we're not hooking up a fuel line yet when I said fuel delivery. I just more mean the ability to operate a throttle.
2 squirts. Ready?
Ever ready, mate, ever ready. Well, when it's, if it over revs, I'll just
Yeah.
choke it, yeah?
Why would it over rev?
So here goes nothing. Did you see that? Fire out the exhaust. We were getting somewhere.
Ooh. What's that smell?
Burning brake
Brake
cleaner.
cleaner, yeah.
The best.
It's letting us further and further away.
Well, that came out the intake, a bit of fuel build-up, but that is just because we had no Jubilee clips on it, so don't worry.
Roll back the tape.
That means
So timing-wise, we were still too early, but we were making progress, I think. So we were getting more action from the inlets than the exhaust, so it's firing when the inlet valves are open, meaning we're still way too advanced.
ooh, flames out the exhaust.
Yeah. That's the intake pop in there.
We kept trying, making small adjustments, but we just weren't making any progress. We would get the odd pop and a little bit of sequence, but beyond there, not much. We had hit a wall and we decided we needed to go back in and figure out timing yet again, but as I mentioned, there's no resources on this, so we had to get a little bit creative.
It was a very clever tool.
Yeah.
It's like you're an engine.
I am. So we're going to measure the valve lift. As the valve opens and closes, this will come up through the inlet port and just show us the point of maximum lift on the dial gauge indicator.
So indeed, at this point we were really having to think outside of the box. We always knew this part would be hard, just by the nature of what we were building and the limited resources around it, but yeah, we really were clutching at straws at this point. But with a new invention under our belts, we were ever optimistic.
Yeah.
Yes. There we go. If we take it slow. Oh, there she blows. There's maximum lift. It's about there.
Combined with our valve lift interpreter device, we also needed to measure the angle of the crank, and this is where the brilliance of iPhone apps comes in. There is an angles app, so with Steve's iPhone and a little bit of super glue, well, we are away.
Right, where do you want me?
The shade tree method was working. The results we were getting were different to how we had timed it previously, so we were onto the right track. Maybe we were just out of time, a tooth or so out. But we'll have to see. Now, these very rusty pieces of metal are what is left of the 1.5 backplates. Now, in theory, according to the manuals and the internet, these should house the timing marks that allow us to get this thing in time. But there is no markings on them for timing at all. Yes, they are rusty, but they're not so rusty that we wouldn't be able to find them. So it really is odd. But anyway, we continued timing the engine with our new specialised method. And indeed, by the end of it, we were a tooth different based on our new measurements. And maybe this difference will get the engine running. And with ever-renewed optimism, it was time to get the intakes back on and see if we'd made a difference. We also decided to give the brake cleaner a little bit of a rest. Another concern of ours was whether we were delivering enough fuel to make it run at all. Again, there's lots of question marks over the carb, whether it's all gummed up, whether it even will work particularly well based on it being drilled for methanol. But anyway, we figured a petrol fuel supply would maybe help the case. And now we were back in business. The engine was retimed, we had a new fancy fuel delivery system, and, well, we just got to see what happens. This was never going to be easy. But we're getting there, I think.
Look at the spark.
No spark?
No.
Oh.
We weren't getting consistent spark now, so we decided to change the coil out.
Whoa! That was a spark.
How's
That's
a spark?
a massive spark. Just put it in bang.
Oh, where did it bang from?
Everywhere. That was a massive fucking spark, man.
What?
That sparked well.
So it
It's
was
up the room.
the coil.
the
Oh,
coil,
you
yeah.
smell. I can smell combustion more
That
than.
is a lot.
Shall I check the tape?
Yep.
Well, at least we definitely had spark now.
Okay, shall we wipe that off? It's quite wet.
As you can tell, it was getting dark outside, and it felt like we were just retreading the same steps over and over again.
Not the queef retention valve again.
Yeah, it could be.
But we weren't quite ready to give up, so with a few small changes to the distributor again and a remote throttle cable installed, we tried one more time.
That's starting.
Yeah.
Now that's the sound we're sort of looking for, so the throttle cable is definitely helping our case.
Whoa. Where's she come from?
Maybe I spoke too soon.
Out of fuel, maybe.
She was getting there.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, electrics. Fire. That's it on there.
Or maybe that was our cue to leave for the day. One of the wires frazzled because obviously there's no fuses in our starting setup. But she was running, sort of. It was a new day yet again. Last night was definitely some progress, and we wanted to see if we could just get it a little bit further. Obviously the car's got no cooling, there's nothing properly hooked up, so we're not looking for a massive start and revving and all of that sort of thing, but we just want to be able to say that nothing is going to go catastrophically wrong. So we went around the engine and tidied up a few little bits and bobs, sealed our intakes even better, and just tried to give ourselves the best chance at this thing running a little bit longer. And we decided it was also time to run this thing off the fuel pump. So with first start setup number 42, we were about ready to try again. As you can see now, we've got very nice sequence out of the exhaust, which is definitely a plus. Priming the fuel pump may have helped.
It's working.
It's working, only the prop.
Ah.
Now that is running. Yes, not fancy, but that is running. That is running. This was the closest so far, but we continued to make small timing adjustments so we could get even more life out of it. We were now getting fire, but it was getting harder to turn the car over.
Big flame out the exhaust.
So we drew it back to where it was slightly easier to start it. see that?
Yeah, it's good flame.
Fuck me.
I think my toes might have been burnt.
Yeah. Do we need to be careful? There's a jerry.
My leg's in the way.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Whoa. Are you seeing this?
Yeah, no.
We now certainly did have a fire-breathing monster. I mean, I know things aren't right, but come on, that is pretty cool. We kept trying different timings, and we were getting close, but something still wasn't quite right. We kept trying and making small alterations, but we weren't moving beyond the point of light combustion. But right now that's all we need. The priority at this moment is just to ensure that nothing internally is going to smash into each other, that combustion is even possible, and clearly it is. But there is lots of timing gremlins, and we've sort of figured out why. But we'll talk about that later on in the episode. But the engine is firing, literally firing flames. So that is pretty cool. So progress had been made, but right now this is only a third of an engine. Forgetting all the cooling stuff, this is a turbo engine, and there's no turbo on it right now. So let's get the whole setup built up for the first time with the engine on the gearbox and chassis, and get the first proper look at our basically fully built setup. Damn, now look at that. We've got an exhaust, and that looks pretty damn cool. And what's the best thing to put on the end of an exhaust? A turbo. So obviously this Alpha racing setup was designed to be in an Alpha. So as you can tell, the exhaust right now is going into the cabin, which overall I would say isn't advisable. And after making some mental measurements, it was time to whip the exhaust portion of the turbo off and
spin it round, it'll go.
Spin it round.
Cock.
I think it fell off.
I'll just catch it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Perfect.
ooh, a bit rusty.
Oh yeah.
Doo-doo. Doo-doo.
You have to play it.
Which piece?
That piece, of course. The one that will actually resonate. No, that. It's not the 1600s anymore. You really are.
Wow.
Bloody hell, that is a big old piece.
Happy, I'm sure. Oh, some dust came out. It's not big enough.
That's what she said.
You have to just remember that it
Yeah.
You put the end
Wow.
Certainly not in its final position, but going roughly in the right direction. And don't worry, it will be held on with a little bit more than a Jubilee clip. But crikey, look at that engine. But wait, we should do a proper reveal, even though we've all seen it. We've just got to honour it. A few weeks ago, all we had was a crusty chassis and a completely buggered engine. And the only thing holding it together was the fiberglass shell. But now, not only have we built a strong foundation, but an engine that hopefully will propel this Nova long into the future. Okay, so this is a huge moment for the build. We have a solid chassis, we have air suspension, we have an engine that is on and firing just about. We'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah, this really has come a hell of a long way in just a couple of months. Before we go outside and talk about the Nova body, I want to talk about the engine, why it's not running properly, and why that doesn't matter. So we're pretty positive that our cam timing is where it needs to be, and we've been messing around a lot with the distributor, and I think that is where the problem lies. Steve and I were talking about it, and we basically think the distributor and the oil pump drive shaft have to be indexed against the crank position. And we did some research, and we can't seem to find any specification or instructions on how to do that. But we think that's basically why we're not able to really get it to fire properly. But here's why that doesn't matter. The main goal of getting the engine on and testing it today was to ensure that, first of all, nothing catastrophic was happening internally. Obviously, we did all the measurements we could, but there's a lot of engines combined here doing funny stuff. So it was always a little bit of a concern, but obviously nothing like that is happening. Everything is healthy inside the engine, which is excellent. And from a combustion point of view, the fact that it is actually firing at all, even though the timing is obviously not what it should be, is a great win. And again, something we just wanted to establish. There's so many additional things in our way right now, probably contributing to why it's not running properly, aside from the distributor. For example, the carb, it's not been cleaned. It's probably all gummed up. It's drilled for methanol. Again, all we're using it for was basically just to dump fuel in to see if something would happen, and it has. So this is actually exactly where we wanted to be. But I've just said a bunch of positive things and not addressed how we will resolve this issue. The reason as well why none of this matters is we will not be running a carb or a distributor, and we'll be going for a fuel injection setup ran off a computer. So our timing issues and our fuel delivery issues will be something of the past. The fuel injection and computer managed system will basically allow us to tune it up and have a self-learning sort of setup. Be way better, and obviously with what we're doing with the turbo, it just makes much more sense anyway. So proof of concept, the engine will run, nothing is going to go bang, hopefully, and we can now move forward with that in mind and start addressing the more technical setup we're going to have. Anyway, with all of that excitement out of the way, I want to talk to you about the exhaust. So obviously right now it is tilting towards the back of the car, but it's quite high up. So I'm going to take you over to the Nova, and we're going to talk for a moment on where this should come out, because I think that's quite interesting. So here we are with the Nova body, which is going inside very soon. It's nice, but sanding has been ongoing. It's just a huge job. There is so much paint still on it, and it's just, oh, it's a nightmare. But anyway, exhaust exit. So our engine is all here, and right now our exhaust is sort of here-ish, lower down. And originally I sort of thought about the McLaren exit, about having it come out the deck lid, sort of on an angle. We'll insert a picture. But what do you guys think? Because we could also have it coming out of the bodywork, lots of fun like that. And these are actual things we'll be addressing very soon. Now the chassis and the engine are all situated. What's coming next is the body going on and fabricating everything to hold cooling and exhaust exits, and just a lot of fun and a lot of bloody work, to be honest. So what do you guys think? Where should it all come out? What would you do? We will be diving back into the 3D scans again very soon. Everything just has become a bit crazy, and I got so many emails, and the build required so much more on the rebuilding of the engine and the floor and everything like that. That sort of got pushed back, but now we can start addressing that again, and I'll email anybody back who I haven't already, and we can start doing some very interesting designs, because yeah, it's almost that part of the build, which is kind of crazy. But there we have it, another very productive session on the Nova. We've got an engine, we've got a turbo setup, it's all moving ahead. And as I mentioned, next up, really, it's going to be putting the body on. Well, not quite. I think next week we're going to address all of the final things on the chassis. For example, brakes, finishing the suspension, all the clearance stuff, and just getting everything dialed in, and then the body can be put on and we can start all of the rest of the work. So things are really moving, really exciting times ahead, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think this is, but I think this is a really big moment that a lot of people were banking we wouldn't get to this point, maybe even me at a few moments, but here we are. I also quickly want to say, if you haven't checked out last week's episode, because a lot of you didn't, and I really wish you would, it's on a very interesting fiberglass car. We picked it up in France, road tripped it all the way back. It really is worth a watch. If you enjoy the Nova content, you will enjoy that very much. So do check it out. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, and even if you didn't, please do consider liking, sharing, subscribing, hyping, that's a new thing, a hype button, all of that sort of fun. It really does help me out, allows me to keep making content on these silly cars, which I am really loving. And I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Another great way to support the channel is the Patreon, which I've linked down in the description. Over on the Patreon, I have a bunch of behind the scenes access, early access, day-to-day updates on the cars, lots of new cars which you guys haven't seen, which are all going on in the background, and crazy stuff. So if you want the inside scoop and that sort of extra bit of detail, do check out the Patreon. Another great way to support the channel is merchandise. Again, I've linked it down below. Any money made goes into fiberglass and rust. So buy with caution. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm so grateful for all of the continued support on this build, and I really hope you guys are enjoying this process as much as I am. Yeah, what a time. But anyway, until next week, take care, and I will see you then.